Welcome to GCA Unmuted, the podcast where we share the stories and strategies that show how Georgia Cyber Academy makes online learning work. For many students, learning becomes most meaningful when it connects to the real world. Work-based learning helps students apply what they're learning in class to real jobs, real responsibilities, and real career pathways, even in a virtual school. I'm joined today by Tricia McCoy and Erica Butts, GCA's work-based learning coordinators. They help students turn classroom learning into hands-on experience that prepares them for life after graduation. We'll talk about what work-based learning looks like at GCA, how students get involved, and why these experiences are such a powerful part of preparing students for the future. So thanks for being here, Erica and Tricia. I appreciate y'all. But can one of you lead off and share a story that you think this really captures the impact of work-based learning for a GCA student?
Yeah, so I'll start us off. So a lot of times, a lot of stories that we hear from our site specialists, which are the people who actually go out to see our students on the job every month, is that they coach them, they coach our students, they work with our students so closely throughout the semester. And one of the main things that we always hear is that the students' confidence in themselves and their abilities grows throughout the time that they're in work-based learning. And so one of our students, just for example, started out such a shy young man. And by the time his time was ending with work-based learning, with his company, he had already taken their leadership exam, passed it, and they were waiting on him to turn 18 so that they could give him his own store to run.
Wow.
So
Hey.
the coaching and the feedback and that he received from his site specialist, I think just grew that confidence so that he was able to just move up and have his own store when he's old enough. So, I mean, that's the stories that we hear a lot from
No
our site
kidding. And
specialists.
and was that student still at GCA when they transitioned to get that store, or was this like right when they were graduating? Do you know?
I think he turned 18 after he graduated
Okay.
last May. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, we need to follow
So
up with him to see how he's doing.
so cool. And do you know like how long that student had been in the work-based learning program or no?
I think just a year,
Wow.
his senior year.
Hmm. Were
Mhm.
there any stories that came to mind for you, Trisha, that you were like, hey, this like really captures the impact of work-based learning for a student at GCA?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off of what Erica said. We have students who are shy and who, don't who are not confident in their abilities. And and sometimes it's just because they're in school and they're judged by a grade, and they feel like they can't get beyond. They see themselves at like the C level, they're not like the top A-B student. But when they come into work-based learning, they get so much encouragement. They're looked at differently in a work setting and even within our program, because we are there to help guide them and build them, and even their mentors, right? So students select their mentors, and these mentors are really, really committed to seeing these young people grow.
Mm.
So I happen to actually go out on a site visit because Erica and I do like to still stay to the beaten path and know what's happening with our students. And so I did go see a student and met with the mentor. And the mentor just raved about this student and how hard he was working in the store, how he was willing to learn new things, how everyone liked him. And that manager was so committed to seeing his growth, So it was so rewarding for him as the manager, but also for the student, And this was a student, and he's actually a student now, right?
Mm,
So this is a student that is a decent student. They're not the top high,
hmm
grade level student, but he sees value in himself, and the manager, his mentor, sees value in him,
hmm
and so that pushes him, and
Sure.
so that's
hmm
been rewarding to see and to hear from the mentor.
Yeah, that's awesome. I imagine the student who's doing well in the workplace, it's probably giving them confidence in school, in the school space, in classes and stuff. So that's so cool. I imagine to see that translate. Um, can you two help describe what is work-based learning and why does it even matter for students? Like if I have no idea what is work-based learning, how would you describe it? And then also like how would you sell it? Why does it matter for students? Why should students even care about getting in the work-based learning program?
Well, it kind of just piggybacks off what you just said, that students, it helps students in the program. It bridges the gap between what they're learning in school and what they're actually going to be doing in the workplace. Now, it's not so much you're doing math problems and you're doing ELA, but I always tell students that what you do in high school is transferable, right, to the workplace. And what you do in the workplace is transferable to what you're going to do in school. So, them going to work and going to school, it bridges that gap,
hmm
right? And it brings the skills like what they're doing at school to work. So, for instance, showing up to class on time, right? Well, you still got to do that at work. Having deliverables, things that you have to turn in, you still have to do that at work. It doesn't go away. Teamwork, working together, being a critical thinker, being solution driven and not always finding fault in something. And so these are things that we do, and we, in terms of teach our students, we help them understand that the employability skills that they're learning at work is transferable, right? And sometimes we have students who come to us who haven't worked before, and they're like, "Well, I don't have any skills," and we're like, "Yes, you do." And we do have them create a resume, and we tell them to highlight their qualifications, right? Highlight their skills. Those that's the start of any resume. And that really sells who you are as a person. So it does bridge the gap between school and work,
hmm
with those employability skills. Erica, I'm sure you can add some stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna
Erica,
say,
tell us what work-based learning actually is. Can you describe that? Because Tricia did a great job of saying, "Hey, this is why it matters. This is why students should care." Can you tell
yeah,
us like what even is work-based learning?
yeah. So just to kind of go off of what Tricia said, work-based learning, it makes school relevant. Like I think big picture on our end, like grown-ups, we want them to see, hey, this is actually relevant. What you're learning in school, you can actually take to the workplace. But for students, to kind of get them in, you have flexibility with your schedule. So this is actually a class that goes on your schedule. It's an elective class, so you can earn elective credit for working. It
Hmm.
gives you flexibility with your schedule so that you can work during the day if you want to. You're not, you can miss your live classes if you're working. And so that's kind of what um, piques our students' interest because they're like, hey, I want to go to work. Like I want to be flexible.
hmm
And so, but that is an advantage of work-based learning. Our students have flexibility and they are earning elective credit at the same time so that if you don't, like if we have a student who has no interest in graphic design, like they don't want to take that class. They don't want to take that class. They want to work. So
hmm
come to work-based learning. You can do both. You can earn your credit and your money at the same time.
Mm. How cool is that? So can you all tell us a little bit about what are the work-based learning opportunities then that are available to GCA students? Like, can I just go like if I'm a high school student, can I just be like, "Hey, I've got a job at McDonald's. Does that count?" Like how do the opportunities, or are there specific jobs that these students have to be in, or how does that work?
Yeah. So a lot of our students already have their own job and they want to keep their own job. And so as long as their employers are willing to work with us, because we still come out and we check on you on the job once a month. So as long as they're willing to work with us, you can keep your job. If you don't have anything, if you don't have a job you're looking, we help you. Like we are statewide, to my knowledge, we're the only statewide work-based learning program that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't found another one. So we work with students where they are. So if you don't have a job, we can help you find something in your area. It can be a paid job, it can be an internship, it can be an apprenticeship. So it's wide open. So our students have a lot of opportunities. It just depends on what we can find in your area that you can get to.
Mm.
And I also like to add that we do have students, they do come with a lot of times with their place of employment. And it might be the McDonald's, right? We had a student a couple years back that wanted to work at Zaxby's. But her goal was to start as of course, baseline employee of Zaxby's, on the floor, read the register, cook, and all that good stuff. But her ultimate goal was to be a franchise owner,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We even had Jennifer Mitchell's son a couple years back, and he was went, from being an employee to a team lead to a shift, and to one of the store managers where he had the keys, to open up and get Chick-fil-A started for the day,
Mm.
So, that was great. And then we also had students who want to work in vet sciences, and so they work at vet clinics.
Mm.
We had a young lady that um, loved horses, and she had a horse, and she was all about nurturing back horses that might have gotten sick or needed some additional care. Dunlooking Farms was that place, and so we have students that go into different jobs. And we had a student that wanted to work at Starbucks. That's all she wanted to do was work at Starbucks, right? And when one Starbucks didn't give her enough hours, she went to another one. And so we were like, so what is it with Starbucks? Why do you not want to go anywhere else besides Starbucks? She said, because I'm a creative person and a Starbucks allows me to be creative.
Mm.
And I just love that, what I'm saying? Because talk about the
Mm-hmm.
love that she's putting into her drinks for
Mm.
us,
Mm-hmm.
the love that's behind it. So people, sometimes it's not always about, I think it's not always about going into office job to work, but it's about meeting people where they are, where they find their joy, right? And so some of these kids love going to, retail places to work, um, or food chains, because they have other ambitions behind it. So let's
Yes.
add that.
So you mentioned hours. So when students are looking at these different opportunities, is there a requirement for the amount of hours they have to work a week then?
They have to work at least 7 hours per week.
Okay. So they have to find, and it doesn't seem like the environment is really a hindrance, is it? It's not a hindrance for this program. Like you said, y'all have a statewide program. They can do it wherever, and because they're virtual, they can do it whenever. There's no restriction on like during the day when they can work.
No, no, I think that's actually more of an advantage being virtual because like I think in brick and mortar, they try to get their classes in the morning and then they leave early for school. Well, our students, because they have flexibility, they can open the store if they want to and work all day long and do their school at night. So I think our flexibility, the way we're set up is really more of an advantage for our students.
Mm.
Yeah, and I would like to add too that, it really also depends on the student and and what they're able to manage, because
Right.
we do have some students who only want to work in the afternoons, right? They want to go to their classes, like they might have a first, second, third period, and then after 2 o'clock, they're free to go to work. And so they want to be present in online for their classes. And then there's some students who desire to work in the morning and they're open to watching recordings. So now when you're in work-based learning, even though you have that flexibility, you do have to, and you will miss class, you do have to watch the recordings within 48 hours in order to be marked present for class. So if you
Mhm.
don't do that, and you have to watch recordings in its entirety. So if you don't do that, then that can begin to build up absences and truancy, lead to truancy. And so it's important that that student understands and they're able to manage watching those recordings, right? And because it can snowball.
Mm.
And they may find themselves watching recordings, recordings, recordings. But some kids, some students are able to do that and they're fine. And others plan accordingly.
Mm. That makes sense. Tricia and Erica, can y'all describe your roles? What are y'all doing for the work-based learning program in the sense of what does your role look like for supporting students through the work-based learning? Because it sounded like you said there are like mentors that are actually like boots on the ground. And Trisha, I think you said that you are sometimes boots on the ground, like you'll go and visit. So can y'all kind of describe what your like your main role for the work-based learning program and how y'all support students?
Okay, so Eric and I really worked like as a team, and so we do a lot together. So being that work-based learning is a class that students have to take and they earn an elective credit for, I will manage the class portion of it, making sure that they do have assignments they have to complete. They do have quizzes, they
Mm,
do have journal reflections, and the class is tailored. So there's three cohorts of students, first year, second year, and a third year student, right? And typically that third year student is probably someone that came in, not probably, but they came in at they picked up a semester at the tail end of one of their grade levels. And so now that they're a senior, they have that one more semester to complete, right? Um, and so the class is designed based off first year, second year, and every
mhm,
now and then a third year student. Um, but the content is designed for if someone is starting out work, what that looks like for them, the modules. And then someone who has been with us for at least a year, advancing because now they've been working for about a year, and what those things that they should expect, which kind of goes into like leadership, training and all that. And then from the third year, it looks a little different as well. But aside from that, we do look at business partners, look at additional, meet with additional business partners in the community. We will also go see site, we try to stay connected to what's happening. So we will do site visits.
mhm.
Um, and what is something else we will do? Advisory boards. Um, we go into classrooms to do employability skills training,
Mm.
CTAE classrooms. So we do a wealth of things. Erica, you might want to add on to that.
Yeah, so as Tricia was saying, she is the teacher of the class. So she's like the teacher of record. And on the other side of that, I'm kind of the recruiter for work-based learning. So I send out the
Mm.
marketing materials, I get the students the applications. Once they submit an application, I kind of go through their grades, their GPA. If they qualify, then I give them a call, talk to them about the program, kind of explain what's going on, and then um, we also have three site specialists. And so once they're in the program, each student is assigned to their own site specialist. And that's who works with them throughout the semester, goes out to see them, provides feedback and things like that. So another kind of unique advantage that we have is because we have these three site specialists, I try to assign them based on where they are, like their
Mm-hmm.
distance from the student. But I also try to match them because I know our site specialist personality, and then I kind of get a feel for our student when I talk to them. So I kind of try to match the site specialist with the student's personality. Like I feel like some of our guys need a male influence. So we have Mr. Delore. And so I try to place them together because I feel like that would be what's best for the student. So
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
we are at a unique advantage where we have a team.
Mm.
And sometimes, like we said, we're statewide. So if a student is 5 hours away from Mr. Delore, but closer to me, then I will go see the student and he will still, send them feedback and work with them throughout the semester. So we are definitely an extra layer of support
Mm.
for our students there.
Sure. That's great. What do y'all think then, shifting gears, what do y'all think other schools could learn? Whether traditional schools or virtual schools, if y'all were to give advice or say like, this is what I think other schools could learn from how GCA runs their work-based learning in a virtual setting here, what would you say? What would y'all say?
Well, I would probably gear that thought more so towards other virtual schools because the models that we have um it's just different than a school district. So site specialists in a brick and mortar, they are wherever their school is, their kids are, right? And then their kids work pretty much around their school and their home. And so that's different from us because we are statewide. So I probably would gear to other virtual programs that are statewide, that are virtual programs that this is a program that they can definitely do statewide. They just have to have committed people on board that's willing to travel the distance
Mhm.
to, start the program. And if not even, and if they don't want to do it statewide, they can pick a portion of the state to start with and then build from there. We went this full force and we are, 159 counties from the day one. you know so and then what's wild is that when we started our program, uh we started in August and then COVID hit,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? So you can imagine trying to start up a new program and then you hit with COVID. And so that was challenging for that year and actually for probably a year or two after that because having wanting employers wanting children or students to come in, they were a little bit hesitant because of the whole COVID and kids coming around. And I'm gonna tell you though, what saved lots of us during that time were students who were working in those fast foods. You could just think back to that time, and if nothing else, you could have, go to like a Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, a Wendy's, Zaxby's, and you were happy to get a meal to bring
Hmm.
some kind of normalcy into your life, right? But if you
Hmm.
remember, a lot of that time it was teenagers working.
Hmm.
It was teens that were running those ships for us. And even within our GCA program, it was our teens that kept us afloat. So we were so
Hmm.
thankful for them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Could you add anything to that, Erica? What you think that other schools could learn from GCA's model for work-based learning?
Well, I think Tricia said it perfectly. I don't think we could translate this into brick and mortar because they just work within their community. Um, so I think we would gear ours more towards another virtual school and say, hey, this is possible. Like we're
Hmm.
doing it. As long as you have a team that you can depend on, that you can count on to go to just about every county in the state, like you can do it. It's doable. We
Mm.
follow the guidelines from the Georgia Department of Labor, just like any other school would. We just kind of tailor it to our environment.
So, do y'all think there's anything in particular that sets GCA's model apart when y'all think about the way we do work-based learning from like a systems and operations piece? Is there anything that really jumps out at you that's like, this is what really sets GCA apart with the way we do things?
Well, I think the fact that we cover 159 counties
Mhm.
and that we actually travel to
Mhm.
go see our students wherever they are, right? So I think that's super unique, that we have site specialists, we have students that are 5 hours away, and we find a way to make sure that we lay eyes on them,
Mhm.
because every child matters. And who doesn't love to see their teacher face to face? These are students that don't see their quote unquote teacher face to face. And
Mhm.
so when they see us, they light up. They're beaming. They're happy. They're like, oh, there's like, who was that? Oh, that was my teacher.
Mhm.
So they're always really, uh, proud to say, oh, that's my teacher. Oh, okay, that's nice.
Mhm.
But I think that's what makes us unique is that even though we're in a virtual setting, we do try to still keep it as personable as possible with our students. And we make sure that they know that they matter.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll have to agree. I think the fact that we are able to break it down so that each site specialist has a manageable caseload. And so they're able to make connections with our students, with their families. I think that is so important, especially in our virtual setting. Like we actually get to see our kids face to face once a month. And so that enables us to make those connections with these students. We had one site specialist who her one of her students, their family invited the site specialist to her going away party when she went away to college. Like she had just built that relationship with them.
Mhm.
Um, and I just like we hear stories about that all the time. That just we have I just love that our team makes those connections. And I think that's
Yeah,
what sets us apart.
right. Shows you're making a difference, making an impact. What would y'all say to somebody then who's like, you know what? You can't make work-based learning program work in a virtual school. No way. You have to be a traditional brick and mortar school where you have the students and the teachers and the site coordinators all there locally. Otherwise, can't do it. Not going to work. What would y'all say to somebody who says
Well, I
Well,
think we're
yeah,
we're
that?
5 years into it and we're going
yeah,
strong and improving every year. So
yeah,
we're
yeah,
already doing it.
yeah. And I've done work-based learning for 5 years in brick and mortar, and it's been 5 years here, right? And
Mhm.
so um it's doable. It's a doable program. Um, the way we, like, I say this. I think one thing that we make sure that we do is that we stick to the guidelines of the program.
Yeah.
We stick to the guidelines of the state program, and we make sure that we fall within those parameters of the program, and we go to trainings as needed. We go to professional development, to continue to enhance us overall. And so it's definitely something that it's doable once you just follow the guidelines, but it does take a little bit of time putting everything into place
Mhm.
in terms of if you're trying to start the program up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure.
And another thing I would like to say is that we have incredible support from our leadership team. So that is that has been amazing throughout this whole process. Like we've started this virtual work-based learning program basically from the ground up in 2019. And we have had nothing but support from our leadership team throughout
Mhm.
this whole process. And that has been so important and so appreciated that they have trusted us to get this going and make it successful.
Yeah, that's key. You got to have the leadership
Yeah.
trust you
Yeah.
so that you can actually feel like you can get your job done instead of feeling like people are breathing down your neck. So leave us with this. So final question for y'all. What is the biggest lesson or just a lesson if you don't want to mark it as the biggest lesson, but what have you learned about, you know, work-based learning, running a work-based learning program, preparing students for the real world? What would y'all say, like, man, this is the lesson that I've really taken away or learned through this whole process?
I would say that students want to know and feel like they're winning.
Mhm.
Students have got to feel like they matter, like they're winning, and it's up to us to create that space for them to feel that.
Hmm.
Even no matter the spectrum they're on, right? Everybody has something that is of value. And it's beyond grades. It's just beyond grades. It's beyond a GPA. You know, we just want to make sure that students feel valued.
Hmm.
And I think they feel that when they're in any programs that as a layer onto who they are becoming.
Love
And
that.
so, yeah, so I think that that's important. They got to feel like they're winning.
What about
Yeah.
you, Erica?
I completely agree. They just need guidance and they need somebody to tell them that they can do it. Like you absolutely can do hard things, and whatever path you choose, whether it's college, whether it's trades, like that's okay. Whatever works for you, that's what we want to support. Whatever makes you happy, that's what we're going to support.
Hmm. So good. So here's today's big idea. When students gain real world experience while they're still in school, they don't just graduate, they launch. So thanks again to Tricia McCoy and Erica Butts for joining us and sharing how work-based learning helps students prepare for life beyond high school. If this episode gave you new insight into career readiness in a virtual school, be sure to subscribe and explore more conversations on GCA Unmuted, Voices of Virtual Education. Thanks again, Tricia and Erica.
Thank you.